चेक करिए, मैं चेक अपने फ़ोन चेक कर, मोबाइल चेक कर। लिंक भेजा ना मुझे, मैं भेजूँगा इधर एक तो आता है एक तो 172 ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਡਾਇਰੈਕਟ ਉਹ ਜੇ ਮੀਂਹ ਕਰੀ ਪਾਏਗਾ ਫਿਰ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਓਪਨ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਨਾ।
of the Skuast Jammu family. We welcome you, Honorable Vice Chancellor, sir. I request Professor S. K. Gupta, Registrar Skuast Jammu, to welcome Honorable Vice Chancellor, sir, by presenting a bouquet of flowers. Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, this event is one among the array of events being organized throughout the country in the backdrop of Indian presidency of G20. Here is a short video to introduce the theme of G20 Indian presidency.
India, home to 1.3 billion people, is a confluence of religions, traditions and customs. A thriving global center of technology and the world's largest democracy. As one of the oldest civilizations in the world with a rich cultural heritage and diversity, and as the fifth largest economy in the world, India is proud to assume the presidency of G20. As the country blooms into a new era, we look to another poignant symbol for humanity to emerge victorious from challenges. The lotus, the national flower of India, represents our history and culture and symbolizes spirituality, fruitfulness, wealth and knowledge. And that's the inspiration for India's G20 logo design. The design, rendered in saffron, white, green and blue, is drawn from the national flag of India. The 7 petals in the logo signify the 7 seas and the coming together of 7 continents at G20 India 2023. Sitting above the lotus is a representation of the earth, reflecting India's pro-planet approach to life and seeing the world as one family. From this, we derive the theme for G20 India 2023, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, one earth, one family, one future. A theme that brings the G20's focus on shared global growth, while being in harmony with nature. G20 India 2023. One earth, one family, one future.
And now I invite the coordinator, G20 University Connect event at Skuast Jammu, Rajan Patient, to present the welcome address.
A very warm good morning to all of you on the dais and off the dais. Dr. Trivakar Mahapatra, Chairperson, Protection of Plant Varieties and Farmers' Rights, Authority, Government of India. Ambassador Sanjay Bhattacharya, former Secretary, Ministry of External Affairs, India. Dr. B.N. Tripathi, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Sher Kashmir University of Agricultural Sciences and Technology of Jammu, and the Chairman of G20 University Connect Program at Skuast Jammu. Dr. R.C. Agarwal, Deputy Director General Agricultural Education, the Indian Council of Agricultural Research. Dr. Samita Saroi, Joint Secretary G20, Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare, Government of India. Dr. Sushil Gupta, my colleague at Skuast of Jammu. Dear colleagues, my dear students, ladies and gentlemen. Again, I wish you a very happy and good morning to all of you, especially the students. It is indeed a privilege and a great pleasure to welcome the dignitaries on the dais and you all to the Skuast Jammu G20 University Connect Lecture Series. Dr. Mahapatra, we are grateful to you that you are made to Skuast Jammu for the first time. Dr. Mahapatra is known for his studies in the field of molecular genetics, genomics, and for his contribution to agri-food systems. I had listened to Dr. Mahapatra at the one of the first Indian Science Congress, which was held at University of Jammu long back. After that, I will be again listening to you, sir. It is my great pleasure to welcome you to Skuast Jammu, sir. We have with us Ambassador Bhattacharya, who was Sherpa to BRICS during India's presidency, known for his Act East policy. I, from the core of my heart, welcome you, sir, to the Skuast of Jammu, sir. Thank you, Dr. R.C. Agarwal, Deputy Director General Education, for being with us for engaging young minds, because education is the domain under the DDG Education at the ICR, so we welcome you to this event, sir. Our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Dr. B.N. Tripathi, and Dr. Samita Sarohi are the persons for providing the opportunity to Skuast Jammu in hosting G20 University Connect program. And ours is the first agricultural university hosting G20 University Connect. Vice Chancellor's guidance and keen interest in organizing the event has been a source of inspiration for me and for the team who is organizing this at Skuast Jammu. I thank both Dr. B.N. Tripathi, Honorable Vice Chancellor, and Dr. Samita Sarohi for valuable guidance and welcome you both to the G20 University Connect program. Thank you very much, sir. I also welcome Dr. Hima Tripathi, National Coordinator, NAHAP, Indian Council of Agriculture Research, to the G20 Lecture Series event. Welcome you, ma'am. It is a great pleasure to welcome colleges who participated in the pre-event activities and their students who are here and who have made to this place today, and some of them are also being given the prizes for their contribution to the pre-event activities. So I welcome all the colleges from Jammu, namely Degree College Araspura, Degree College Vishna, Degree College Samba, Degree College Sidra, Government College for Women Bhagwati Nagar, Government College for Women Parade, and Maulana Azad Memorial College, who made this G20 University Connect a success. I also welcome the judges, because the judgment of these students' events was done by the judges from outside the university. I also thank and welcome them if they are here to this G20 University Connect program today. A warm welcome to our deans, directors of Skuast Jammu and other statutory officers for being here and making this G20 University Connect program a success. Mr. Dheeraj Vyas from Indian Institute of Integrated Medicine in Pizziara, I also welcome you to the event. Heads of divisions, professors, faculty of Skuast Jammu. I am overwhelmed with the response we got from the students and their participation from all the faculties of Skuast Jammu and the colleges which I mentioned earlier. It would not have been possible to have this humongous gathering in this conference hall, which has a capacity of 1,000 plus. The pre-event student activities such as poster making, essay writing, quiz competition, ideathon and Rangoli making was great encouragement for the team which is organizing this event at Skuast Jammu. I welcome all the students to G20 University Connect program. The students will benefit from our agenda of today's discussion covering India's presidency of G20, agriculture issues in G20, sustainable agriculture for resilient agri-food system in tune with the sustainable development goals of UN, especially the goal 2, keeping in with the climate change, and the special question answer session with Rohit Sharma from RS will be conducting over here. These are the important issues to discuss and deliberate. The students who excel in the pre-event student activities will be awarded with the prizes and their contribution will be acknowledged. As coordinator of the G20 University Connect Skuast Jammu, I am pleased to welcome press and media who are here to cover G20 University Connect program and thank them for giving wide coverage to pre-event activities of the university. Finally, I welcome all the team members who were in the coordinating team and other teams of the G20 University Connect program, who put their best efforts for successfully organizing pre-event activities and today's lecture series. I once again welcome you all to this event and invite the students who are with us today who participated in pre-event activities to be the future innovators, the brand ambassadors of their institute, Jammu and Kashmir in India. We are holding this event on the eve of Chandrayaan-3 landing on the moon, and this triumphant day for science and for all Indians. And let us celebrate one earth, one family, one future. Thank you. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, to take us forward in understanding the role G20 presidency is playing in strengthening the brand India and taking us further as a nation, we are fortunate to hear it from someone who is one of the architects in designing, delivering and executing the India's foreign policy. Born and brought up in New Delhi and an alumni of Delhi School of Economics, Ambassador Bhattacharya was a member of the Indian Foreign Service, former Secretary in Ministry of External Affairs, former Ambassador to Switzerland, Turkey and Egypt, Sherpa to BRICS during India's presidency, young diplomat in Bangladesh, Japan, China and Hong Kong. Ambassador Bhattacharya is a specialist in boundary and security issues, economic diplomacy, diaspora and negotiations. He led policy making on Act East and Indo-Pacific, Middle East, mobility and migration, diaspora affairs, and passport and consular services. He contributes articles on foreign affairs to journals and media. He is a writer, speaker, mentor, traveler, and foodie. I request Ambassador Bhattacharya to present a talk on G20 Indian presidency. Sir, please.
Namaskar. It's really a delight to be back in Jammu. I'm back after 36 years. Dr. Tripathi, Dr. Mahapatra, members of the faculty, and dear students. Thank you for this invitation to your university in this very beautiful city, and what a lovely campus you have. Today we shall talk about G20 and India's presidency, and what a proud moment it is for India, because it's happening at a time just before the summit is to take place, where several great achievements are to be enshrined, and I think in many ways it is a moment for India. And in many ways, I think it is also a moment for Jammu and Kashmir, because Jammu and Kashmir has been at the heart of many of the G20 processes. But I also think your role is very important in all this. And before we start on G20, I wanted to share with you the state of the world that we live in. As you all know, this is the era of transformation. Transformation in disruptive technologies which are changing the way that we live, the way that we work, the way our future is going to be. And I'm so happy that I'm in a university where we are making these changes that are at the core of this transformative era. We're also seeing that we are confronted with many challenges, such as climate change, and I'm so happy that the members of the faculty and the students are engaged in addressing those challenges, particularly in this place in the field of agriculture. We also have other challenges, such as terrorism, the change in society and aging. What we've seen in recent times is that there is also a shift in economics, where Asia is becoming more prominent, and India's place in the global economy and global polity is becoming more important. So it's a very exciting time for you, and what you do today is going to be extremely important for what happens tomorrow in the future. So please work very hard for it. I thought I'd divide the agenda into three parts. I'd first share with you what the story of G20 is, how this came about, and what our priorities are and how we are working towards those priorities. And finally, to just leave it with you as to what the role of the young people could be in this particular story. I know this is not a Department of International Relations, but we'll talk about many of those issues today, and I hope you find it interesting. So the story of the G20 really began out of economic crisis. As you know, in the latter part of the 20th century, we found that the G7 or G8 was unable to take care of the economic crises that were taking place. And essentially what had happened was that the economic weight, the sectors of production and technology, were shifting from around the Atlantic towards Asia, which is of course a good thing for us. And in 1999, the finance ministers of the G8 included the finance ministers and the central bank governors, for us, the governor of the Reserve Bank, into a forum which was the initial part of the G20 story. Because the idea of G20 at that point of time was how we can have financial stability in the global economy. Because the countries that were developed, they were not so focused on growth like we are, but they were more concerned about stability. And they felt that they needed to involve countries like India and many others into the discussions. In 2008, when the G8 summit was taking place in Toyako, and I happened to be posted in Japan those days, I recall a meeting that President Bush had with Prime Minister Manmohan Singh. And at that meeting he said, Prime Minister, I think we want to take the G20 to a summit level. so that we can benefit from the advice and participation of countries like India, China, Mexico, and many others, so that they can become part of the global decision-making, particularly on economic issues. And so the first summit of the G20 was actually held, the commemorative summit was held in 2008 in Washington, followed by the first formal summit in London in 2009. And since then, in the first couple of years, it was held twice a year, and after that it was held every year. And of course, the big story is that India is the host for this year's G20 summit and the G20 process. Now, the G20 is actually a very significant member of the global community because it has roughly about 2/3 of the world population. Also, more importantly, it controls about over three quarters of the world trade, about 80% of the trade in services, and 85% of the global GDP. So the initial days, the G20 really focused on financial stability, as I said, but when the new members, that is countries like India, China, and others, got into it, they brought to it the concerns that we had, part of the global south. What is it that it means for growth and development? What does it mean in terms of financial flows, technology flows? And so G20 became a much broader discussion point. The G20 is guided primarily by two pillars. One is the old pillar, which is known as the finance track. It discusses economic issues, particularly of financial stability and investments. But it also has the Sherpa track, which is in a sense the political security track. And in that we discuss many of the other issues that are of great interest to the world, particularly on the social front, on the SDGs that we have. To a third pillar, so to say, which is the engagement and the people-to-people. So today's meeting, for instance, is part of that third track, where we bring in civil society, where we bring in universities, we bring in the youth, we bring in business, we bring in women, and we have a discussion so that you can all become part of the G20 process and enrich the way it goes. Now, the G20 does not really have a permanent secretariat, and so in many ways it depends on what and how the presidency decides the agenda. But for the sake of continuity, what we do is we have something called a troika, which is the former president, Indonesia in this case, and the next presidency, which will be Brazil. And as you can see, in December last year, the presidency was passed on to India, and through the year we have been doing a series of meetings to take forward the agenda. And what we've tried to do is to give a unique flavor of India, because after all, we're not just a country, we're a very ancient civilization, and so we wanted to bring some of that. When we look at the priorities, it is important to see, when we were taking over the presidency, what kind of a world we were in. Now, as you remember, we've been going through this period of crisis. You know, there was COVID, which had disrupted not only social and health life, but also economic activities. So in that particular scenario, we had to form our priorities for our presidency. And what we decided was that instead of looking at the gloom and doom kind of scenario that we were in, we would try and project a hope and optimistic kind of projection for the way that the world could go ahead, and the way that the G20 could provide direction to global management of various issues. And therefore we came up with some of the original ideas, which is hope and harmony, and for stability, of course. The slogan that you heard of one world, one family, one future, that was also a very important part of it. And the other part that was decided, and Prime Minister was very keen that the people of India should become involved in this G20 process. And we said that we must involve not just the people, but familiarize the G20 world with India's ethos. And this is a very rich ethos that we have. So that is how we are kind of doing these various G20 activities across the world, across India, and of course there are a few meetings in other countries as well. So for us, it was also an opportunity, and the opportunity was that India, as you know today, is a very vibrant economy. It's a very buoyant economy. We have a very hopeful and aspirational youth population. And we also have the tradition of our civilizational values. So we would be able to project this to the world and try and restructure the way global governance is done, not just in the economic field, but also in various other global governance structures. Because one of the things that we felt was that the voice of the South, the developed and the developing countries that are there, the voice of the South was not always properly heard, and it was not always properly recognized. So we thought that this was the opportunity for us to project that and to bring about a greater hope for the developing world and to get a greater sense of responsibility in the developed world. There were several priorities, but I'll focus on the 7 key priorities that India had outlined at the start of the G20 process of our presidency. And these are all very critical, and I think you will find echoes and relevance from the work that you all do in the very specialized areas that you work on, because these are intrinsic to the way the future of the world will be shaped. The first was about vision, and this was how we can lead towards a more green world. As you know, in the climate change process, we have already committed that by 2070 we shall be a net zero economy, and that will mean a lot of work from all of us. And as part of this, we've set a 2030 target, which is that we would like to have 50% renewables, and in the manufacturing sector, we would have about 45% carbon intensity. Now, these are very ambitious targets. And in order to do that, there are a couple of initiatives that we've been supporting very actively. One is the International Solar Alliance. The Solar Alliance is an international institution which is headquartered in India, and it has over 100 members now, and it provides technology and financing to countries that are willing to promote the Solar Alliance has become a partner in the G20 process as well for our presidency. The second big initiative on which there have been very favorable outcomes is actually the Green Hydrogen Project. And in this in particular, when the last G8 meeting was held in Hiroshima, and as you know, Prime Minister was attending that as a special invitee, we were able to bring about the Green Hydrogen Task Force. So that is a huge achievement for us. A number of universities and institutions in the country are already working on this, and we have a very ambitious green hydrogen project that is ongoing. The second one that we have is actually about life, or how we can call it lifestyle for environment. You know, the process by which economic and technological development had taken place over the last couple of centuries had in a sense taken us away from our link with nature and the link with society, and it was in some ways perhaps a very rapacious kind of a system. It led to, of course, great discoveries. But I think sitting here in the heart of Kashmir, we know that there is another way, the Indian way, in which we live in harmony with our nature. And therefore, this is one of the things that was promoted. We actually launched a life initiative, and the UN Secretary General, who was visiting India for this purpose in January of this year, launched it with Prime Minister. It was done in Kevadia in Gujarat. And this is something that is a new idea in G20, and we're very proud of it because it has found an echo and resonance in many parts of the world of going back, at the same time going ahead. So going back in terms of the lifestyle of harmony, of respect for nature, of recognizing our traditional values, recognizing some of our traditional methods, including in agriculture. So for instance, millets this is the year of the millet. I was very happy to see one of the Rangoli outside had millets over there, which is a very, very strong recognition of this particular development. The third priority that we had focused on was called bridging the divide. There is divide in society in terms of inequality of economic status and of opportunity. There is a digital divide that has come about. And the way we found, particularly in the experience in India, is that we need to bridge this divide. And the way that we wanted to do it was through the promotion of a digital infrastructure. And India has been really remarkable in the way that the digital infrastructure has progressed. So what the digital infrastructure does is to create digital public goods. A public good is something that is available to all, so you must have access to that. What also is necessary is that it should be able to provide you an identity, and then there should be ease of a transaction. So for instance, the identity came through Aadhaar in a certain sense. He was buying some beans, was able to access this financial transaction through the UPI on an app. So this is a remarkable example of digital public good that we have been able to develop and promote, and it's now getting popularity across the world. And many of our public goods, of our digital public goods, are now finding replication. What we've also done is to make these free-use platforms. So it's not that we wish to have any IPR on this. We are very happy to share this because at the end of the day, it is important to have this sharing idea, and that's what digital public goods do. The fourth big priority that we had was on food security. When the war happened in Ukraine, this became very evident to the Western world. We, of course, in India have faced famines in the past, and we also had food shortages in the 1960s, 50s and 60s. And thanks to the remarkable contribution of our agricultural scientists and farmers, we've been able to overcome that situation of net deficit, and we are now a net surplus in the agricultural sector. And so our example in this is very good. But when the war broke out in Ukraine, there was a certain sense of food insecurity in many parts of the poorer world, in Africa and some of the other countries. And we worked very closely at that point of time to see that food security becomes a prominent issue, because unless you can provide that basic minimum to the people who need it the most, it is extremely difficult. Of course, some of you might also remember that during the pandemic, the COVID pandemic, we in India had started a system of food distribution to our population, and a very large portion of our population. So we had seen success in providing food security and access to food through basic materials to the people. So what we did was that we launched a food security, a global food summit that was held over here, in which we highlighted this important aspect of making sure that not only that the food reaches the final consumer, but also the entire chain through which food is produced, and you are all central to this. The farmer gets the right inputs, the right remuneration, and that the network remains smooth and unhindered. And so this has become one of the major issues, and I think in many ways the kind of work that you do in this place is very central to providing that food security in terms of the options for the future. So congratulations for that. The sixth priority that we had established was on digital, financial governance. This was very important because, at the end of the day, finances determine the way investments happen. And if there is a control of the manner in which or the direction in which finances happen or investments are taken, then it need not be totally beneficial to the entire population. And as developing countries, we've been kind of at the forefront in trying to reform the financial governance system. As you know, the IMF and the World Bank, which are instruments that were established at the end of the Second World War, have actually done very good work in development. But at the same time, the control of these institutions has remained with the very few rich countries because the voting shares that they have are overwhelming. So we've always advocated that there must be greater voting share for the developing world, and we've had some success in that. But it's not been enough, which is why we have been setting up new instruments which are at the regional level. So we have, in Africa, there's an African Development Bank. In Asia, there's a similar bank system. And recently in BRICS, which is having its summit from tomorrow, from today in fact, we have a BRICS bank, or the New Development Bank. So this has happened as a system, and I would say that in the G20 process this year, in the finance track, one of the achievements that is very significant is to bring about a greater sense of democracy in the financial governance system. Also, what we've been able to do is to reinforce the debt suspense limitation for many of the poor countries. There are about 50 countries which are going to benefit from this debt exemption limit which has been raised, and this is going to be a great benefit for all of them. And the seventh and the last priority that I wanted to highlight for you was how we need to continue working on the SDGs. This is something that all countries have worked and agreed together. This is at the United Nations level. We have our country agendas, which are for 2030 again. And we have targets in various sectors. And some work has been done. India has done good work on this, but there's still a lot more that we want to do. And so now the key areas of focus are essentially on things like health, education, sustainability, and to make this a more inclusive process. And so this is another item that has been a focus of the G20 presidency of India. And how are we doing this? As I said, there are these two tracks. The Sherpa track does a large number of these issues, including the issues of agriculture is also part of that. And there's been, we're very happy that Dr. Siori is over here who's been involved in that process as well. So in many of these tracks, in the finance track, there have been a lot of progress that has been done, particularly on the investments for the financial flows for health sector. After the COVID pandemic, we realized that we need to have more collaborative efforts. So some of that has been happening over there. But I think one of the most exciting areas is the engagement of the civil society sector, and this is where we come in. And I think we've been able to have a greater outreach with the entire country and the population of India. Because it is extremely important that people understand what is this G20, what does it mean for us, because the way the governance structures are, and they are going to be in the future, we have to have a greater say and voice in the way these things are governed. What we've also felt is that it is important to promote our basic values of democracy, development, and our demographic dividend that we have. So we've tried, on the democracy front, we've tried to expand the membership so that, not just of the membership, but of the participation. And we've invited about 8 emerging economies, including some of our neighbors and very close friends, to participate in the G20 process during our presidency. And this actually broadens the framework, and we can hear many more voices. Prime Minister Minister has recently written to all the G20 members for the inclusion of the African Union as a permanent member or invitee. As you know, the European Union participates in the G20, so Africa, which is really the continent of the future, needs to have a more cogent voice. Overall, I would say that we've had great progress on the G20 during our year of presidency, and many of the targets that we had hoped to achieve have been attained. Of course, we have fallen short on some of them, particularly on the issues of climate finance, where there was a commitment at the Bali summit last year that there would be a fund of 100 billion annually to provide climate finance projects across the world. But the developed countries have not really made up their contributions on that. And that's been an ongoing struggle. As you know, climate change has been one in which we've had a lot of problems with the developed world. But that's something that we have to do as part of the negotiations. And finally, that brings me to the last bit about what is it that, where do you all fit in? Prime Minister himself had launched the University Connect program, and this is one of the University Connect events that we are holding following that. And he had put it rather beautifully in 5 short points that he had mentioned. And the first is that we must tackle challenges by collaboration rather than by conflict. And if you can understand what this means, this is really the way India wishes and has been going ahead. But a lot of the world has not really progressed on the basis of collaboration, but has progressed on the basis of conflict. So we need to change that understanding. The second thing that he mentioned was about technology. I'm so happy that I'm at the institute, at the university, where technology is at the core, because this is what helps us scale up. Today, technology helps developing countries like us to actually scale up our process, to leapfrog the stages of development and become a more prosperous and developed country. The third that he talked about was public goods, to expand the outreach. I've talked about it, and I think that's been one of the great successes of this G20 presidency of ours. The fourth was about the Global South, and I think we are at that juncture today where the developing countries need to be more assertive, need to be more confident about who we are and what is it that we want, what is it that we represent, and how we are going to go about in changing the global structure. So this is not just global governance, there has to be reform of the international institutions, because whether it is the United Nations or its Security Council or its institutions like the WTO or the World Health Organization or the IMF World Bank, we need to have fundamental changes in that. And that's where the Global South will have to play a more important role. And India has emerged as a leading voice of the Global South. And the final thing that Prime Minister mentioned was about the trusteeship with nature. This is very, very close to the Indian psyche and the Indian way of thinking. So I understand the university has been very actively engaged in the G20 process, particularly in some of the Youth 20 events. I was so happy to see that you had a quiz competition, the beautiful rangoli that is outside. And so, what does it all mean to you? I think it is important for us to know that the India of today is a very different India, and we are, after 75 and more years of independence, a much more confident nation. And a confident nation that not only has greater capacity to do things for our people and for the rest of the world, and we've always believed in the rest of the world, that understanding of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, but we are also more able to do it. So not just the ability, not just the capacity, but the ability and the willingness to do it. So you represent the youth of India, you represent that confident India that needs to change the world, because we have had a beautiful civilization, which our history and civilization has been extremely harmonious, has been extremely peaceful and stable. At the same time, it has also had great advances over time, and we need to keep up that momentum because it's not enough just to rest on the past, but to make the future. And so I think what we would really like and hope is that you become the ambassadors of the future, because in many ways the future depends on how you shape it. In our generation, we've had many great progresses, but there's also, in a sense, some of the challenges that are left behind. So I wish you all the best. It's been a great pleasure for me to be here, and all the best.
Thank you, sir, for this extremely informative talk. I now invite Dr. Smita Siroi, Joint Secretary, G20, Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare, Government of India, for her remarks on agricultural issues in G20. Born in Bareilly, UP, and an alumni of Delhi University and Jawaharlal Nehru University, she has been advisor, agriculture and marine products to Embassy of India to Belgium, Luxembourg, and the European Union. Dr. Siroi was Principal Scientist and Head of the Division at NDRA, Karnal and National Institute of Agricultural Economics and Policy Research, New Delhi. She is an expert in the areas of agriculture policy, climate change, and international trade. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Honorable dignitaries of the dais, distinguished faculty members of Skuast Jammu and other colleges from Jammu, my dear students, ladies and gentlemen. Ambassador Bhattacharya has very eloquently appraised you about the genesis of G20, the Indian priorities, and the role of youth. As the track lead of Agriculture Working Group, which is one of the tracks under the Sherpa track, which we had just seen in the slides, let me briefly tell you about the genesis of this group and what are the kind of priorities which we took forward and what were the outcomes of the Agriculture Ministers' meeting. Since I was leading this track, so we have a lot of insights into how these things were taking place. Agriculture Working Group came much later in 2011 in the French presidency, when actually the world was really under very high price volatility and very high prices. That was the time in 2008, 2009 was the year of financial crisis. The world was not already over with the financial crisis. We also had after effects of that. And then in 2010, there was a severe drought because of which Russia withdrew its exports of, I would say Russia banned its exports of wheat. And therefore, there was a lot of chaos in the world regarding the prices of food. So it was in 2011 French presidency that people got together, the agriculture ministers met for the first time, and there was a series of action points which were discussed there, series of initiatives which were launched, and also it was seen that it had some impact in terms of Russia subsequently withdrew its ban on exports. Again in 2012, in the Mexican presidency, it was realized that it is not only important that agriculture ministers meet, but it is also important that the agriculture scientists have a very important role to play in G20. So, a separate meeting of agriculture chief scientists was initiated in the Mexican presidency in 2012. So thereafter, each year we have meeting of agriculture chief scientists, which is coordinated by our DARE and ICR. Subsequently, 13-14 was the year when the global prices came down, so world was not too much concerned, so agriculture ministers did not meet again. But again, 15 onwards, from the Turkish presidency till the Indian presidency in 2023, Agriculture Working Group and Agriculture Ministers meeting has been a very important part of the Sherpa track. With this kind of a brief background, what kind of priorities India has been taking forward, and what was the motive of taking that forward? We have just heard Ambassador Bhattacharya saying that food security and nutrition was one of the priority areas of India. Why food security and nutrition? You see, in 2015, when the Sustainable Development Goals were brought in, we saw that zero hunger was one of the major goals, that by 2030 we are going to achieve those targets. So world was making pretty good progress in reducing the malnutrition and hunger in the world. But in 2018, the trend started deteriorating. And in 2019, we all know when COVID came, things really worsened. And hence, there was a big upturn in terms of number of people who were food insecure. And unfortunately, with COVID, climate and conflict, with these 3 C's, in 2030, we have just 7 more years to go to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. But unfortunately, the situation will be almost similar as it was in 2015. So it's very unlikely that we are able to achieve those targets. Keeping that in mind, food security and nutrition was of course the overarching target, the overarching priority of the Agriculture Working Group. And since to attain food security and nutrition, what you require is short-term, medium-term and long-term responses. Therefore, what we did was, we talked about 3 particular aspects within food security and nutrition. One was sustainable agriculture with climate-smart approach. Second one was inclusive agriculture, inclusive agri-value chains. This was the second theme. And the third one we talked about was digital transformation of agriculture. So these were the priority areas with which our presidency was moving forward. What happened during the meetings, how the meetings transform? Very quickly, I would just like to tell you that how it happens. We have the deputies meeting which go on over a period of time, and a document which comes out as a communique of the agriculture ministers is negotiated. And then we have a separate track which is for the agriculture chief scientists. And I'm very happy to tell you that this year, despite of all the kind of difficulties which we had in terms of the geopolitical situation, there was a historical consensus which was reached after the deliberations on the above issues, and there is a declaration which talks about G20 Deccan high-level principles on food security and nutrition. And these principles have been unanimously agreed by all the countries, all the G20 countries. What are these principles? This is one of the major outcomes. These principles, there are 7 principles which are there, and these principles are providing a very clear roadmap to the global policy makers. You see, unlike the Paris Agreement, unlike the climate change negotiations, where the targets which you take are mandatory, here in G20, whatever is being agreed upon, whatever commitments we make at the global platform, these are not binding commitments, but they do have a kind of a moral obligation. In the sense that if you have made certain commitments there, then the world is looking at you to fulfill those commitments over a period of time, although of course nobody can legally challenge you if you do not do so. So what these 7 principles do, I will just tell you what are these principles briefly. They are providing a roadmap for the global policy makers, and they are elucidating the steps which are necessary to holistically confront the contemporary challenges which we have. And what are those challenges? The challenges are, of course, that we must have safe food, adequate food, nutritious food for all, and that too, agriculture should move on the path of sustainability. So sustainable transformation is the key to providing this kind of a transformation. Now in this Deccan high-level principles, as I said, there were 7 principles. We have talked about how humanitarian assistance needs to be facilitated to the countries. There are a lot of population, there are areas who are in vulnerable situations. So what kind of humanitarian assistance can be had, especially in case of conflict now, which is not only Russia-Ukraine conflict, but also in several other parts. We have seen Sudan, we have seen Syria. This hampers the food security situation of these vulnerable countries. So how India or how other countries, G20 countries, can take lead in this? And then one another aspect is the food safety net program. And India is a leader, runs the world's largest food safety net programs in the world. We have the Portion scheme, where we have the life cycle approach, right from the pregnant and lactating mothers till the school meal programs. This is how we are providing nutrition to millions and millions of our people, especially women and children. So that is a model. Providing the food grains through the public distribution system, that is another model. So these are the models where India has a lot of experience, and the countries, especially the African countries, the Asian countries, the Latin American countries, they look towards India to learn from the way these programs are being executed and they are being learned. Then we have, of course, nothing can be done without the collaborative actions for the climate resilient and sustainable agriculture food systems, and this was your theme which you have been deliberating upon. Here, within this sustainable food systems, we have talked about things like biofortification of crop varieties. I see our Honorable Dr. Patra is there. He is an authority in talking about sustainable agriculture, so I'm not going to take away time for talking about this. So biofortification of crops was one of the areas which has been really emphasized upon, and this is the need for the global south. There are several African countries, along with the CG centers, they are releasing several varieties of biofortified crops. Another area which we brought about, which was a commitment which we have made in the Agriculture Ministers meeting, is on millets. On millets, as you have seen that agriculture, this is the International Year of Millets, and to build upon the momentum, there has been a lot of change which has taken place in past 1 year. Although in 2018, we had announced National Year of Millets. But the kind of momentum which it has gained now, that is extremely, really tremendous. And even in, you can see even in airlines and in trains and everywhere, millets-based food is being now served. So catching up on that momentum, building upon that momentum, what we have also come up as one of the major initiatives of G20 is a Millet and Other Ancient Grains International Research Initiative, which is acronymed as Maharishi, where India is going to take lead and are one of our premier ICR institutions, that is Indian Institute of Millet Research, is going to host that secretariat. So this will be an opportunity for networking of the scientists who are working in millets research and also other ancient grains. When I say other ancient grains, we could probably cover barley, we could cover teff, we could cover quinoa, although quinoa is not really one of the ancient grains, but there were certain countries who expressed interest in quinoa, so these kind of crops. So this is also one of the other very important initiative which has been a part of the G20 India's presidency. Then coming to strengthening the resilience and inclusivity of agriculture and food value chains. You see, this is a topic which is very close to the developing countries, because we need to connect a smallholder, marginal farmers, women and youth into the agri-value chains. So this was taken up as one of the priority areas. Within this, we also spoke about reducing food loss and waste. You may be aware that 17% of the world food production is actually wasted, and 11%, and I'm not talking about post-harvest losses, 14% is post-harvest losses and 17% of food is wasted. So this is another area which aligns very, very closely with the LIFE mission which has been mentioned about, which has been launched by our Honorable Prime Minister, talking about a lifestyle for environment. So food loss and waste, how can we reduce this food loss and waste, because this has tremendous implications for feeding rest of the population and also implications for climate change. Another area, one of the principles, and again in the fifth principle in the Deccan High Level Principles, was One Health approach. We have veterinarians here who may be more aware of this One Health approach, that is integrated animal health, plant health and human health. All these three things go hand in hand. So we have to come up with kind of strategies which reduces the antimicrobial resistance, where we can work, and especially after the outbreak of COVID pandemic, we realize the importance of One Health even all the more. Then acceleration of innovation and the use of digital technology. A lot has been talked about that digital public goods are so important, even in agriculture sector. The world is looking at India with great interest, even in agriculture sector. The kind of agri-startups which have come up, which have digitalized agriculture in a big way. So that is where a lot of opportunity lies, and that is where India is taking lead, and we have also made certain commitments under innovation and use of digital technology. And then of course nothing can be done without finance, so scaling up of responsible public as well as private investment in agriculture, that was another commitments which we have made in the network of the kind of network of agriculture universities which India has, catering to different agroclimate importance of what we are doing at the international level. So take pride that whatever work you are doing has a lot of implications for the international discussions which are on at various levels. Then, of course, I have already talked about food loss and waste, digitalization. I would not take very eloquent speakers after that. I will just with a thought or with these words, we say in the vast fields of opportunity, let us sow the seeds of innovation, cultivate the bonds of cooperation, and harvest the fruits of sustainable agriculture for a nourished world. My students, dear students, as you embark on your journey, remember that your ideas and actions hold the power to transform the future of our global food system. Together, we can ensure that G20's commitments to agriculture excellence bears fruit for generations to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. And now I request Dr. R.C. Agarwal, Deputy Director General Agriculture Education, ICAR New Delhi, to present his remarks on agricultural issues in G20. Born in Mathura, UP and an IARA alumni, Dr. Agarwal has been an FAO consultant, National Coordinator, NAIP, Registrar General Protection of Plant Varieties and Farmers' Rights Authority, and National Convener Roadmap for Implementation of National Education Policy in Agriculture Universities. He is National Director of NAHEP. He is an expert in biodiversity informatics, information management, intellectual property rights, farmers' rights, and agricultural education. Over to you, sir.
Honorable Dais, Dr. Mahapatra, Dr. Bhattacharya, Dr. Tripathi, Dr. Gupta, Dr. Smita Shoi, Dr. Rajendra. Of the Dais, I see senior faculty members here, all students, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's a matter of great privilege to be part of this very important topic. That how to engage the young minds, because the role of the universities is to engage the young minds, and specifically if you go to the agricultural universities, I think they are targeting the rural youth, and we are having a lot of young minds of the rural areas. We always say, हम लोग हमेशा कहते हैं कि भारत एक जवानों का देश है. We are the youngest country in the world. Youngest country in the world means our average age is around 29 years. So that means we have a lot of young minds. So it's very pertinent topic, sir. Thanks to the G20 Secretariat, to our Honorable Prime Minister, to keep this very important theme, that how to engage the young minds. Because young minds means that how it's not only that you get more innovativeness, you get more ideas for the entrepreneurship, but also if you are having more young minds, you are having better market also. So keeping all those points, I think it's a very important topic, it's a very important theme of G20, and I think no other country could have taken so much advantage of the G20 as the India has taken. So many programs under the G20 which we have taken. So I will talk that what is our preparedness to keep engage these young minds forever, not only for this G20 year, but what is our preparedness that how we can really engage the young minds year after year, and I think for a sustainable basis. As it has been told by Dr. Bhattacharya, Dr. Smita, what are the challenges? I am not going to repeat those challenges, 7 challenges or the 7 main areas, sustainable development goals, other things. But I think without agriculture, you cannot achieve these sustainable development goals. Out of 17 sustainable development goals, 12 are directly connected with the agriculture. And for attaining these sustainable development goals, until unless you have these young minds, until unless you are having the preparedness to connect, to make aware those young minds, I don't think that you can ever get success for achieving this SDGs also, or to achieve any other challenge. So for this, I just want to tell that not only these 76 agriculture universities spread across the country, but now even the private universities, we have around 400 private colleges also. They are also coming on a single platform to engage the rural youths. We have a very important program, and that is called Rural Area Work Experience. And we are developing an app now, and very soon it's going to be released, to keep track of every student, how many young minds he has really connected, what are the important feedback they have received from the farmers and the young minds, and what kind of topic they are going to educate to those rural youths who somehow could not have this higher education. And the important development which has happened over the last 6 years is that more and more girls students are really coming towards this agriculture education. Around 7 years back, 50% girls students, but today we have 49% girls students in our agriculture. So those young minds really, they are very innovative, and that's a very positive sign which we have received. Not only this Rabi program, but you see, recently we have asked all the universities, and I think Dr. Sabati also must be conducting some programs. We have provided the sufficient funds to all universities that please connect to all school principals, connect all the 12th class universities. Just explain that what is the agriculture. When we invited one secretary on his initiation, we had a meeting in Delhi of all Delhi-based, and those वो लोग सोचते हैं कि एग्रीकल्चर में अगर बच्चों को ऑप्शन दिया तो इसका मतलब ये उसको खेत में जाना है और सिर्फ हल जोतना है या जो भी करना है, कल्टीवेशन करना है, बट दे डोंट थिंक कि एग्रीकल्चर मीन्स more than 80 subjects for the MSc, more than 80 subjects for the PhD. And when we explained, they were saying कि हम counseling करेंगे बच्चों की कि they should opt by choice agriculture. And that is the result. Again, I am happy to share with you. Last year we had around 80,000 students applicants for our 3,500 seats, which ICR quota is there in all universities, central quota. But this year we received more than 5,80,000 applications. See the difference. More and more young minds, they are coming to the side. Agriculture is the only field which can really meet all these challenges. जो बताया मैडम ने बताया, डॉक्टर भट्टाचार्य जी ने बताया, आपका मेल न्यूट्रिशन, क्लाइमेट स्मार्ट एग्रीकल्चर, आपका फूड सिक्योरिटी, all these sustainable everything. So until unless we provide the best platform, और उस best platform को provide करने के लिए we have done really a massive digital revolution. You can visit this university also. You must be finding a lot of change. I think some of the students sitting here, they must be the beneficiary of our international exposure. Our faculty also must be beneficiary of that. till date we have sent around 1500 students across 80 countries. Can you imagine any other system outside agriculture where at the expenditure of the government, students are being sent or the faculty is being sent? So we are really training our young minds to get them prepared for the future. And I personally believe that they are the future leaders. When we are entering into this Amrit Kal, when 2047 will come, will not be there. They are the leaders who will really give the shape to this India, who will make this country as a vibrant country. So it's a right investment. When somebody asks me why so much funds are being provided for this, we told it's a hidden cost. You will see the results only after 10 years, after 8 years, not immediately. That today I am sending somebody and tomorrow you ask what is the impact of going abroad. You cannot. So that is really how we are engaging the young minds, how we are really preparing those young minds for all those things. All the latest topics, again for the young minds, we are trying to incorporate, whether it's artificial intelligence, the all latest research. And a very interesting figure I was told by somebody, entomologist. You know this black fly? Black fly or this black soldier. BSF they is called, not border security force, but black soldier fly. एक प्रोजेक्ट दिया हम लोगों ने NHEP में, और उस प्रोजेक्ट में very small amount we gave, just I think 1 crore only. Just we wanted to see the effect, and they were saying that alone that black soldier fly can help in attaining 12 of the sustainable development goals. Black fly आपका food waste को convert करती है protein, कोई भी food waste है, और cleanliness, hygiene, आपका natural farming, many things it will just really. तो इस तरह के innovations, इस तरह की चीजें आप देखेंगे, it's plenty which is there in this. Not only this, I also want to tell you the preparedness of ICR. We have, under this National Agriculture Higher Education Project, a very important component, and that component is the Center of Advanced Agriculture Science Center. And whatever topics you have told, for all those centers we have now this Center of Excellence in our universities. Why we have chosen universities? Because universities will train the young. You see, we have a Center for Market Intelligence. I think in G20 you talk for the market access. Okay. But we have the Market Information System. But we have a Center of Excellence which has been highly appreciated at Anand Agriculture University, and that is Market Intelligence System. A lot of students, they have been sent so many countries to get training, they are doing PhD, so that we are really prepared for what is this market intelligence. We have on IoT based solutions, climate smart agriculture, secondary agriculture. You think of whatever topics you have told, we have a center under this line. Why? Again, to engage the young, to do the research, MSc research, PhD research, even the UG programs under all those latest topics. And all these universities, they are interlinked. So if market intelligence, if a student sitting in Jammu wants to do, he can go to Anand. They cannot say that they will not take up the project sitting in it. So this complete ecosystem is really helping our students. Under IDP, if you see, you can see under this university, the kind of smart classrooms, again to connect all universities. More than 4,000 lectures we have put on that Agri-Diksha portal, so that all the students can be benefited by connecting to each other a single platform. One single teacher can take at the same time the classes for 74 universities, and any student can interact with that particular, so through that platform. And for that platform, again, I think just 4 or 5 months back, and maybe your university also is going to be the beneficiary very soon. The blended learning platform, we call it as a learning management system. Again, we are through this BLP, we are targeting that the teacher should address the requirement, individual requirement of each and every student. How? Before coming to class, you can pose some questions through that platform, and you can assess that what is the requirement, what is the level of understanding. You can upload certain PowerPoints, you can upload certain references so that they come prepared, and then you can just see the requirement of each and every student. Everything will be uploaded on that, and from end-to-end solution to that platform we are going to provide to all. Again, how we can really prepare ourselves, prepare our country for meeting all the challenges which have been highlighted, which our Honorable Prime Minister is looking for, is dreaming for, all those points. And not only this, but then we have to know our strength. And recently we have released a report, what is our human resource requirement for the next 20 years for the Amrit Kal. And that study, very soon we are going to release that study. Also, how our all agriculture universities can go for the global competitiveness. This was again a point. And for that also we have made the strategies that what are the gaps and how we can really fill up those gaps so that we attract more and more international students and more Indian students, they can go wherever they want to study. So how that ecosystem, also that Kudambukam, so that how really we can have one system. We don't think that I am from Jammu, I'll study only in Jammu. No, this is the whole country. And not only the whole country, Vasudhaiva Kudambukam means the whole world. You can study anywhere and any other student can come here. So are we prepared for that kind of platform? That really we have to see. Our thinking has to change. Our many new ideas have to really come. We have to encourage the students to come forward and to provide all kind of such facilities. I think we are ushering into an era where we will provide all kind of latest technologies to the students, digital initiatives. And if you see in the last 4 years, the kind of digital revolution we have in agriculture education, this is unparalleled. People are appreciating this, whether it's a Krasi Mate, our own cloud computing system, whether it's a academic management system.
As evident from the event byline, the objective of University Connect event is to engage and involve young minds. To achieve this objective, we will now have a brief question and answer session. I invite Dr. Rohit Saini, a representative from our Information System for Developing Countries. Dr. Saini.
Honorable dignitaries on the stage of the university, students of university and nearby colleges, RIS. I am Rohit Saini, RIS coordinator for G20 University Connect for Sher-e-Kashmir, University of Agriculture, Sciences and Technology of Jammu. Everyone must be memorized by the lecture from such learned speakers. I would like to thank speakers for such a wonderful talks. A lot of questions must be coming to your mind. I think that we can take 3 questions at a time. And then speakers may respond to them and then again rotate the cycle. How many mics there are available in the auditorium, please? There are 2 mics, so please raise your hand, whoever want to put the question. We have 15 minutes. So let's start the question answer session. Please specify to whom expert you are addressing, and please raise your hand. Please feel free because you can see that there was an overall G20 session by Acharya. He is very learned man on please feel free if you have many questions, and let me tell you that I am also from agriculture background, and I know that students in agriculture, they a lot of questions related to agriculture. So you can ask them from Dr. Smita Sirovi. He has just wind up the G20 session and now also BRICS session. So please you can ask her also on agriculture specific questions.
First introduce yourself.
Namaste everyone. I am Ritur Sharma, BSc Honours Agriculture student, second year student. It is a privilege to sit here and hear the dignitaries, and I am very much enlightened to and gain a lot of knowledge and new things and many answers that are already answered today and inspired me to work more in the field I have chosen. Sir, one thing which really confuses me and sometimes it really hits me hard is the gap. So, if we analyze, there is a lot of gap in almost every section, every thought. There is a lot of diversity. No doubt, it is a good thing, but sometimes it feels like having an age gap in my age group only. It's like there is a lot of diversity depending. So concentrating my topic on the engaging youth minds and in the Department of Agriculture and the progress we are making. So I come from a rural background. So when I go from here to there, I see a lot of gap in the minds. Like people are not very much approachable and people are not very much, developed to think that way. So on one side of the nation, a lot of development processes are going on. The country is progressing on a fast rate. And on one side of the nation, people are not even ready to accept the change. So I would really want you to guide me. How can I be an asset for them, and how can I be the bridge, being a youth, being the one in the middle generation, that I can make a change for them, and or either I make them accept the change, or I can make a change, in the upper section where the development is going.
Wonderful question. Please, whom you would like to this question to? Okay, sir. I think that Dr. Agrawal would be best person to answer this. Please, mic to Dr. Agrawal. Yes, sir. We can take one by one, as I can see that there are not many hands. There are any questions, we can take 3 at a time. If there is none, then Dr. Agrawal can respond.
Hello. I will request Bhattacharya first to respond.
I think that's a very interesting observation about the diversity and how we live with it. One of the most beautiful things about India is this unity and diversity is something that, when we were growing up, we used to talk about it. And the fact that there is so much of variety in any democracy, the vitality of the system comes from the diversity of the process. The fact that you encourage and enable all these different voices, different backgrounds to flourish. So I think it doesn't matter where one comes from. I can say, for instance, the global system, which we've been kind of practitioners of for the last several decades, has been enriched greatly by the process of diversity. So there was a time when I think we used to say that there are just these two big powers and everybody else had become part of that. And you would remember that at that point of time, India said, sorry, I don't want to go this way or the other. We will have to path our own way. And so there was that non-aligned movement. And what they tried to do was to preserve the unique characteristics of every individual of this greater flat world that we live in. And that has been part of the way that every organization, it's also true even at the base level. So, you know, in a family or in a community of friends, there is this very beautiful thing about the diverse nature of each person or of each organization. And the more you can promote that, the stronger the system becomes. So at the root of it should be this thing about empowerment. And I think, you know, Professor Dr. Agarwal also mentioned it, because when you provide resources and encouragement, you provide that sense of empowerment to that group, and every diverse element can then develop. And that then leads to the next stage, which is so important for human development, which is aspiration. So when I look at my country today, and you know, we see it, how it's grown over time, we find how the levels of empowerment have constantly grown. Education is a big element of that. Development is a big element of that. Participation is a big part of that. And then that leads to aspiration. And that is extremely important for any dynamic society. So it is very important to have that sense of confidence which comes through empowerment. And then that leads to the next stage of what you're going to create. Because as I see, and that's why I started my presentation today with this era of transformation. There are these dramatic changes taking place all around us, but we have to be part of it. It's not just looking at everything else. So we can be part of it, and that's through that particular sense of promoting the beauty all around us and letting everyone flourish. So I think everyone's going to find their own way, but you need a system that is more accepting as well. And I think we provide one in many, many ways. Is that a very esoteric response?
So thank you, sir. I also just want to add, because in fact she has asked a very pertinent question, and that's the real problem. Bridge the gap, because I am the asset, and there are a lot of persons like in the field of agriculture. किसान को advice देने के लिए, I don't think कोई भी once you acquire the knowledge, once you acquire the education, आप लोग किसानों के बीच में नहीं रहते, तो एक gap हमेशा बना रहा है. इतने सारे हमारे young graduates हैं. Even after doing this undergraduate programs, if you ask them, भाई आप खेती करेंगे इतने scientific तरीके से खेती करेंगे, जमीन भी उनके पास बहुत है, but no, they want to just go out. So कहीं ना कहीं those persons they always remain deprived, उनको शायद वो information नहीं मिल पाती है. तो इसके लिए हमें सबसे पहले ये सोचना पड़ेगा, we have to just think that how I can be one of those, how can I just be at the same frequency as they demand. So first I have to be among one of them. I need not to pose like I am super intelligent. Socrates ने आपको कहा था कि the most intelligent person is the one who knows that he knows nothing. आप क्वेश्चन है इसमें कोई ये सोचे कि मैं सुपर इंटेलिजेंट हो गया, ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. You will be the most intelligent जब आपको ये पता लगेगा आपको कुछ भी नहीं पता है जो इस संसार में उपलब्ध है. लेकिन हमें थोड़ी सी नॉलेज आती है, हमें लगता है नहीं ये तो बहुत नीचे लेवल पर है, जबकि दे आर मोर इंटेलिजेंट देन अस. Only thing is they are not educated, but intelligence you cannot say. So that connect really has to be somewhere. And we have to really can gain more if you connect with those persons. So thank you for asking that sweet question.
Thank you both the dignitaries for answering, beautifully addressing the concern of the student. Any more questions from the house?
Good afternoon, sir. I'm Munzar Ahmed, PhD second year student, Division of Agriculture Extension Education. Sir, मेरे साथ दो इंस्टेंसेस है. मेरा इंटरेक्शन था एक पॉलिटिकल साइंस लेक्चरर से. उसके साथ बात करते करते वो ऑस्ट्रेलियन एजुकेशन सिस्टम पे बात हुई थी कि सर नेशनल एजुकेशन पॉलिसी पे बात कर रहे थे. इस रिलेटेड एक क्वेश्चन है. तो उनने कहा कि Australian education system, there is a type of division between rural areas and urban areas. The universities are the educational institutes which are in urban areas. The type of study or the syllabus there, and it is like we have to adjust our lifestyle to that area. And in rural areas, the syllabus and the education style is like that. Rural area people are mostly engaged with agriculture, and most core of the syllabus is agriculture, and this is how they retain youth in agriculture there. One of our problems, even so many programs are being launched to attract and retain youth in agriculture. Sir, another instance is while I was I was in my master's degree program. I had an advantage to work with a German student who was doing his PhD. As part of his PhD, he was from University of Hohenheim. He was working in Vedant Chandra Krishi Vishwavidyalaya. While working there,
sir, please be brief. Please be brief.
He told me that he has got funding for his PhD research from Shell Oil Company with headquarters in Netherlands. And he is conducting 2-3 case studies for his studies in Asia, Africa, and another European countries. Sir, but we here in India, and as being under the presidency of G20, how we can assess those situations, those funding opportunities, so that we can diversify and broaden our research. As he is from Germany, he is doing his research in Asia, Africa. But here we don't get those opportunities. As a part of this, how we can assess those opportunities as part of this G20 University Connect and Engaging Young Minds.
Thank you. We will take 2 more questions, then I think that dignitaries can address. Next question, please. I can see few hands here also, if someone can come there. Please be brief.
First introduce. Good morning to sir. On the stage. Pursuing my PhD training at Fruits. We are seeing in this world that we emissions from Russia and natural gases, and we are exporting the silk and saris to, and these both countries are fighting. How India and these 2 countries are being the part of our G20 summits. How India is dealing this both the countries, as we are importing the fuels, natural gases from Russia, because this natural gases or the fuel is the basic core of this agriculture sector. As we had stopped our natural gas prices in less than 100 rupees, this is little bit costly, but we had made a very much effect to our farmers.
Thank you, sir. Got your point. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And we will take 1 more question. Then one by one we can have dignitaries answering the question. 1 more question, please.
First introduce yourself.
Good afternoon everyone, I'm Sylvania. I'm doing Masters in Biotechnology, and my question is to Mr. Sanjay Bhattacharya, that I want to ask his opinion, or I want to give I want to ask his take on India being the leader of this global south and why there is less participation of African countries in this G20 summit. Thank you.
Before going to answers, I would give you some hints for questions because I have worked closely with the Joint Secretary on agriculture issues. One can ask how difficult it was to engaging with those 19 rest of the countries and how she tackled that. So, sir, please, the first question was on India, broaden the research, and please, dignitaries, would, someone would like to address that. On broaden research.
So, that question was really very important. I don't know what the name of the student, PhD student. But we are doing a lot of efforts for the industry support for the students. Recently we received one MOU also from the seed industry, and I request Honorable Vice Chancellor also that if you can explore some more possibilities. So what we are doing under that scheme is now, you have to provide the scholarship to the students, you have to provide the laboratory equipment, and you have to provide, if it is required, their foreign travel, because this NEHEP is only up to the project time period. But what happens beyond that? So some ideas have to come from the universities, but that is one possibility we have explored, and we'll take, to begin with 10 universities in this summit, but slowly we are exploring, we are going to have dialogue with the pesticide industry, with the food industry, value chains, with many more such industries, so that those kind of connections, real-time research, demand.
But there are a lot of good connects which have been formulated as a part of this G20 in all the other agriculture ministries.
Or a grouping like this, a partnership such as the G20, one of the key things that happens is that people across different sectors come and meet at a very frequent level, on a frequent basis. So the UNFCCC or the climate change commitments that they had got diluted. As a result, many of them are moving to more carbon-intensive fossil fuels, global average in terms of our carbon emissions. And we will continue to use more fossil fuels because that's needed for our development process for my population. What we found was that when the Ukraine war happened, that there was a diversion of many of the different countries which had imposed sanctions. Recall at that point of time, there was we had to, in this particular case, is not confined to anything, it is actually to stopping the war. And what we need is the sides involved to engage in diplomacy, to engage in negotiations, so that we do not have this continuing situation. So, the Ukraine issue, the energy crisis that came about, the food crisis that came about posed new challenges to the global community. And I think in many ways the G20 has been looking at some of the options. So if you look at on the food side, for instance, in the Bali meeting last year, we had supported the Black Sea initiative so that the grain would reach some of the less supplied parts of the world where they had food shortages. So we have to look at this in a broader context, and I hope you can understand that. The second question that I wanted to address was about the global south, and I think that's something that has become much more relevant because when you do not have a place on the table, you can hardly influence decisions that are being taken over there. So when you look at global governance structures, if you're not there, you cannot be part of the discussions. So you need to first have a right to be on the table. And today, thankfully, the voice of the global south, the developing countries, has become much more apparent because Through decolonization, we have been able to have that sense of political independence, and to translate that political independence into social and economic independence and justice and opportunity for your people is a huge step. And in that we need the involvement of the North, or the OECD, or the developed countries as well. So for us in the Global South, there have been many movements that have happened. You would recall that in the early days after our independence, India was a great champion of the emerging countries that were becoming independent, emerging countries we are now able to have the latest technologies, which, as I was saying, from the stages of development. So the new Global South movement, and we got into this in a very active way because we held the Global South Summit in January this year. Anyway,
and as we go up with regard to development, and particularly in the area of agriculture that I am discussing at this point in time, and that is what is very, very important. And not only we are feeding 1.4 billion plus people, don't forget this, we are feeding 1.4 billion plus people. Forget about begging and borrowing, and more than that, we are exporting, and despite COVID we exported, and last year export touched almost 50 billion US dollar, and after feeding this huge population, we are also importing, and that import, we are import surplus, actually we are exportable surplus we have, and almost 20 billion we are surplus with regard to agricultural commodities. And that is what has happened because of the technology, because of the policies, and because of all the kind of framework, institutional framework that we have built over years, and which are enabling, all these at the ground level. And that is what we see. And certainly there is poverty, and certainly there is malnutrition, certainly there are challenges, and challenges are going to be further multiplied because of the nature of changes which are happening all around, and 3 C's were mentioned, and there are other challenges as you see. Very briefly I will mention. And always we cry, and you see in many platforms is talked about that the total factor productivity is low. Actually in recent years, our total factor productivity is much better than even that of China. Every time we say China is doing this and that and better. This is one case, and you can see we have surpassed that of China, where the total factor productivity, agricultural productivity, it has surpassed that of China. It's better than that of China. And of course, the average of global average is better. India is a better place at this point in time. So this is what is the positive side of what we see. But the population is growing and growing and still growing, and we are the most populous country now, and we will be still going and becoming almost 1.7 billion by 2050. And when we become 1.7 billion, whether the kind of land area that we have or that we cultivate would be sufficient to feed us, whether we will be able to provide feed and fodder to the animal population, which is a huge population, and can we sustainably carry forward the food security, nutritional security situation that we have, and pretty well we are managing at this point in time. And we have very large, big targets for us. Niti Aayog worked on this, and very big targets. If we go as business as usual, or maintaining momentum, or if we plan for a higher side, upside, what would be our requirements? It's all given there. I'm not going to read because of paucity of time. And if you really work in that direction, it's not a small task. My young minds who are sitting here, it's a very big challenge to reach there. Enhance productivity despite all limitations of climate change. How do you really do this? and what technology can actually help. And the sustainable development goals are there. Dr. Tripathi was mentioning. And what are the 17 sustainable development goals before us? Can we really reach there? Can we really address our own problems at home? And can we be partnering among the G20 countries, help them who needs and get the help who can, and can we really collaborate and partner to move further and move forward to address the sustainable development goals and be there where it is required. Climate change is a very big challenge, and you see that the rainfall is increasing. The rainy season rainfall would increase in India, and the unevenness, irregularity would increase. The excess events would increase. The heat waves would be far more frequent, and it has been already noticed. In fact, snow cover would start melting and started melting. In fact, it will contract further. And of course, the extreme events, as I said, would go on increasing. And because of this, the sea level rise would also happen. And once that happens, this is some of the indications that how temperature would be rising, carbon dioxide temperature would, carbon dioxide concentration would be increasing, and leading to temperature rise. And similarly, sea level would be rising, and because of that big glaciers melting and heavy downpour also happening, and all rain going to the sea and oceans, and in the process the sea level rising, and in fact inundating some of the coastal areas, submerging some of the coastal areas, and bringing high level of salinity, the coastal salinity increasing in the process. And how do we really address all this? By way of technology. And India would be also a water-stressed country by 2040. And can India really address? And by in 1950-51, every person had an availability of about 5,000 cubic meter of water. And today it is less than 1,500 cubic meter of water and fresh water. If that is the situation, by 2040 we will be fighting among each other. Within state, forget about between state. There is fight already between state at this point in time, and we will be fighting further by 2040. And situation will exacerbate, and then we will be in a very bad situation by 2040. And there will be reduction in yield, and that is the challenge. The young mind should actually think about it. How do we really address this reduction in yield and fall in GDP? And also, the livelihood security will be threatened. As you all know, 85% of farmers are small and marginal. And the livelihood, you don't have opportunity. More than 50% of people are engaged in agriculture. The agricultural GDP, the agricultural contribution to GDP is declining around 18% now, and that will further decline. But unless you remove people from agriculture to other sectors, this would be a precarious state of affair. The people, large number of people staying there, and lesser contribution of agriculture to GDP, and productivity going down, being challenged by climate change. And how do you really address this situation? How do you ensure livelihood security to such a huge population? And this would be a very big challenge, and planners must really think about it and must really take necessary action. And you can see how climate change is already impacting and is projected to impact in the future, the crop production, as we go along. I will not describe each one of them, but it has been, we have been planning, and the National Action Plan on Climate Change happened in 2008. And we have also 8 national missions which were formed, and National Mission on Sustainable Agriculture is one of those. And this is one of the aspects of my lecture. I will not go into those details, because if I keep talking about those, it will take a very long time. The time is limiting. A National Mission on Sustainable Agriculture has several things which we are talking still today in G20. Dr. Smita was mentioning. Some of those have been described and deliberated. We talk about transforming agriculture, climate resilient production system, ecologically sustainable production system, and food security and equitable access to food resources, livelihood opportunities, and economic stability, and so on and so forth. The food system globally talks about this. And so that we planned in 2008, and still we are planning some of those. And at a certain stage, in certain areas, implementation is good, but still it's quite challenging. But how do you really actually use bioresource to actually address these challenges? We have reached biodiversity, and this is one of the biodiverse regions of the country. And how do you really prospect newer molecules, genes, and traits from such bioresources? And I think this is where we have to really focus in the university system. Young minds can be encouraged to really delve deeper, to discover these and develop technologies and innovative solutions, and are built in the process so that the farmers benefit, the country benefit, the global community benefit, and we build value chains based on that. The value chains which are established based on that, provide solutions to the food system. The importers, the exporters, the processors, and everybody actually gains out of it when we build value chains. And mine your genes and alleles from these germplasm resources. There are many examples, and wild relatives, and how do we really get those things. This is one of the examples that from the salt-tolerant land resource, races, the farmer varieties, you can get the gene and make submergence tolerant rice. The rice which can be there under water for 15 days or 20 days, it can tolerate that level of submergence, and that kind of varieties have been developed by using the farmer varieties and land races which are there. And farmers' varieties are plenty here in this region of the country, and they need to be really protected. They need to be really preserved, and that's what farmers are doing, and they should be rewarded for that kind of work. And the current organization, Plant Variety Protection Authority, does that. And that is what is very, very important. I will urge Honorable Vice Chancellor and the faculty members to see that how farmers can be enabled to conserve their germplasm resources more and more, and you go for trade discovery in those lines so that they can be utilized to develop newer varieties tomorrow, which will be climate resilient, which will be nutritionally richer, and which can provide solutions to the malnutrition which is also pervading, and we can have newer types which are exportable, which are also processable, and those kind of traits which are there, which are already existing in the germplasm resource, need to be really exploited, and that is the need of the hour. And in Bert's word, the young students and researchers must work in this particular area so that we build tomorrow's agriculture with this kind of newer solutions. And this is one such variety of rice which is climate resilient. It has drought tolerance, it has submergence tolerance, and in fact salt tolerance also will be getting added, and multiple stress tolerance, and it is desirable for meeting the targets with regard to climate resilience. And herbicide tolerance, because the weed population is going to increase further because of the enhanced precipitation, and when that happens, obviously managing crops would be really difficult, and we can actually have technologies to manage herbicide tolerance, inbuilt herbicide tolerance in crops, in a wide range of crops, and particularly in the pulses, because pulses suffer huge losses because of the weeds. And if we have herbicide tolerance in those kind of crops, you can spray herbicides, and the labor management is so difficult today, and with a lesser cost, and you can have better crops and better yields, and the process you can address the shortage with regard to pulses, and also with regard to oilseeds like soybean, and a great amount of yield is lost to weeds in case of soybean. So you need such kind of traits for climate resilience, and for reducing input cost, and the process enhancing the income of the farmers, and reducing the import bill which is there with regard to edible oils. So you can do deep science by doing this kind of work. And those who are interested in deep science, they can not only discover new genes and new alleles and new biomolecules, they can also understand new pathways and also manipulate the biological systems and build newer systems, and the process address newer challenges and create new products. Multi-billion-dollar industry can be built based on those kind of products which have nutraceutical values and pharmaceutical values, and they can be produced in case of plants. And pathways where there are problems, and you can manipulate those by employing newer technology called gene editing. And that is one of the ways to address the climate issues and bring in more of climate resilience and have crops which are nutritionally more enriched. And this is one of the examples by gene editing, by manipulating the gene called DST, drought and salt tolerance gene, and you can have a very high level of drought and salt tolerance in case of rice. I have taken some examples of rice which I was guiding all other part of the world. So you can see how much of grain you can have despite the drought and salt stress. So that kind of gene editing technology, which is now globally accepted, India has brought out the regulation in support of this, and you can take it to the field, and that's what is actually enabled now. So with that kind of policy support, the gene editing technology should be mainstream so that we are able to take this to the field. Globally there is greater emphasis on sustainable agriculture, because sustainable agriculture has to be key. We talk about regenerative agriculture, we talk about nature positive agriculture, we talk about natural farming systems, and so on and so forth. And there we address the soil problems, there we address the water issues, and we would like to leave less of footprints of water and greenhouse gases in the environment. How do you really do this? And increased emphasis on these, through international days. And this year is the International Year of Millets. This is India's initiative, and UN declared this 2023 as the International Year of Millets, and we are celebrating. That is one thing, but what is more important is mainstreaming millets for nutrition, for climate resilience, for sustainable agriculture in this country. The area is declining. The small millet area has declined by 90% if you compare it to 1960s. The finger millet area has declined by 50%. In fact, a very significant area decline. We have been able to maintain production because of the yield increase, and the consumption has not really happened. Only because of the COVID, there is a greater consciousness with regard to immunity and immunity building, and that people have gone for more of consumption of millets. And I believe that the masses at the village level, the rural settings, the consumption has very significantly declined, and this is now associated with the poverty. So nobody would like to consume millets many regions of the country. So now we need to really promote in the schools, in colleges, and all that, and have new dishes developed, and delicious ones, so that the consumers prefer. And that is what is actually need of the hour. The consumption must drive production. That is the issue, and that should be the message in G20 Connect. And this is one area where we can connect with the South. Mention was made about South-South connection, and South-South connection can happen through millets. Africa grows. Africa's productivity and India's productivity, one can compare and see where we are, where are they, and how we can actually work together to promote millets in Africa and build international trade, and the process improve nutrition globally by way of that. And that is plenty of opportunity for South-South interaction, collaboration with regard to millets. And you can also have management platforms in place for climate resilience, and these are models which have been built by ICR. These need to be really replicated in Central Asia, for instance, in Africa, for instance. So G20 must talk about these kind of solutions which are available, these kind of examples which are available in India. Dr. Smita was mentioning that how do we mainstream technology and innovations for providing solutions to the challenges which are there at the global level, and how G20 can enable. And climate funding, Dr. Bhattacharya was talking about green climate funding. Where is that fund? And can that fund be enhanced unless that is enhanced? And can that green climate fund support these kind of endeavors so that the countries which are lagging behind, they can be actually supported and enabled by way of this collaboration? And that has to be more. And we have plenty of experience in this particular area. And district planning, because the uncertainty in climate has increased. The heavy downpour days, suddenly it is increasing, and you can see the hills, what kind of devastation this year, and drought years are increasing. So how do you really plan in advance, and how do you prepare this contingency plans and implement them? And that is a need to really make them real time. So real time contingency plans for every state, for every district, for every block. We don't have weather data for every block. And can the university actually work on this to have weather parameters collected at the district level, at the block level, and so that a greater amount of planning can happen with regard to contingency planning at the block level, at the village level? And can we plan at the village level, at panchayat level at least to start with? And conservation agriculture we have been practicing, but the area is not really increasing. Global level, so much of emphasis on this. Sustainable agriculture, if we talk about, this is one of the aspects of sustainability. And unless there is actually funding going into it, the carbon trading, which need to be really promoted in this country, which supports conservation agriculture. The subsidy systems of the country gets diverted to support the carbon, sequestration, technologies and practices in agriculture. The farmers are not going to really adopt this, and this is the kind of actually issue which need to be really discussed. And the economists of this, agricultural economists, must really emphasize on this, so that there is more of carbon, support happening, and the conservation practices are promoted, and in the process the green agriculture happens, the sustainable agriculture happens as we go along. And the integrated farming system models provide sustainability and resilience, both. And that's the theme of the lecture. And resilience and sustainability provided through integrated farming system models. How many are there in the farmer's field? We have more than 60 models. They haven't gone so much to the farmer's field. The science of it is established. There are almost 30 such models which are bankable models. And can that be promoted in the state? And can the young colleagues who are sitting here, when they go to the state government, they take note of this and promote this in the state, so that farmers benefit wherever the water is there, wherever the water is limiting, what kind of systems to be promoted, and differentially segregating those regions and the situations, and promoting right kind of models so that the farmers benefit immensely. And agroforestry system also for carbon sequestration, harvesting carbon dioxide and contributing to mitigation of carbon dioxide greenhouse gas emissions. And this is very, very important aspect which is being deliberated globally. And in fact, dairy net zero is being discussed. I can't really spend time on each one of those, Dr. Tripathi. You have been the very, ardent lover of animal system, being a veterinarian and being the DDG of animal science. We must really look into this, globally, which is being discussed. And in India, we don't really discuss much about it. and how dairy net zero can be actually practiced in this country. Because the subsequent, next to rice field, this is a dairy, which emits most of greenhouse gases. And how do we really mitigate that? And sustainable agriculture can happen if we are able to mitigate those greenhouse gas emissions, whether from rice field or from the animal system. So this is where the direct seeded rice and the conservation agriculture in rice system and the Haridhara kind of technology can help us to mitigate greenhouse gas emissions, and the process bring in much needed sustainability, much needed resilience in the production system as we go along. So the fertilizer use is so grossly unbalanced, and you can see the kind of ratio which are recommended and the kind of ratio in northern India. This is 19:5:1. Grossly unbalanced use of fertilizer happens in this part of the country, and we need to really address this. And unless we address this, the sustainability would be a dream. Sustainability would be a dream. So we need to really address, and the young colleagues, the young minds who are sitting here must spread this message, the balanced use of fertilizers, the balanced use of fertilizers, and for that you can use technology. The technology which is of paramount importance, the drone-based technology, how much of nitrogen is required, in which region of the field it is required, how much quantity is required, and drone can be used to actually provide and adequately address this issue of misuse of fertilizers. And I believe that can be done. And similarly, in a real-time manner, you can monitor the crop growth and how it is happening and what all is happening with regard to the crop. In the process, you can actually address the crop the issues. And this is one of the issues, that how much of water to apply. The water footprint we would like to reduce in agriculture for sustainability, and if we want to do, can IoT help me? Intelligent irrigation system can help me. And we have initiated a program called National Network Project on precision agriculture in Asia, involving several institutions and universities, and hopefully it will contribute this technology, smart technologies. Mention was made about smart technology, and I was to talk about. Time is limiting, I'll not really go into those details, but the sustainable food system not only addresses production, but profitability of the production system. The economic viability and vitality is so important, and environmental health is so important, because if sustainability doesn't address environmental health, so it is unsustainable agriculture, and India cannot continue. The global food production system cannot continue producing food unsustainably and polluting environment, degrading soils, and reducing water availability, whatever is available that's depleted in underground regions of the world. And you can't continue that way producing food, or can continue having animals and which contribute more and more greenhouse gases to the environment. You can't continue doing this, and you have to have social equity also in the process, and health of the consumers. And all these need to be addressed in the sustainable food system and in sustainable agriculture platform. And that is the message I want to give you. And I believe we should be able to really do this when you talk about this G20 Connect. And G20 Connect must address all these issues of sustainable agriculture and a resilient agri-food system. And by way of addressing the climate change issues, so smart technologies are to be put in place to address the climate change challenges, and in the process make the sustainable food production system a reality. And that is what the message I would like to give you at the end of the day. And thank you very much for your patience. And also, I thank Dr. Tripathi for giving me this opportunity to be here before you. And thanks to all of you once again. Thank you, sir, for such an informative, relevant, and interesting lecture. It will remain a food for thought for all of us for a long time. As a prequel to today's program, various competitions for students of this university and nearby colleges were organized, glimpses of which you can see in the lobby of the auditorium. Now is the time to declare the results and felicitate the winners of these events. I invite Professor Rajendra Patient, coordinator of the University Connect Skuast Jammu, to present the pre-event briefs as we declare the names of prize winners.
Once again, now from morning we have moved to afternoon, a very warm afternoon to all of you. So we have moved from engaging young minds to awarding the young minds. So I will not take much time this time because we are already running late. We had 5 pre-event universities G20 Connect activities. The first was on-spot poster making competition held on 4th of August 2023. The theme was Sustainable Climate Resilient Agriculture. 77 students from Sher Kashmir Agriculture University Jammu, Government Degree College Bajwani, Government Degree College Araspura, Government Degree College Bishna, Government Degree College Samba, Government Degree College Vijaypur, Maulana Azad Memorial College Jammu, Government College for Women Bhagwati Nagar, and Government College for Women Parade participated in the event. Dr. Rastogi, floor is yours to announce the awards.
Poster making event was coordinated by Dr. Sachin Gupta and Dr. Moni Gupta, and the third prize in the poster making goes to Mr. Lakshmi Narayan of Government Degree College Araspura. I request all our esteemed guests on the dais to please felicitate the winners for presenting the prizes and the certificates. The second is Mr. Lakshmi Narayan of Government Degree College Araspura, and I request the principal of the college, if they are here, to please accompany the students. Principal, Government Degree College Araspura. Ma'am, please. The second prize, she is the principal from Government Degree College Araspura. The second prize in the poster making goes to Ms. Palkin Verma of MAM College Jammu. Palkin Verma, MAM College Jammu.
She is not here.
Okay.
First prize.
And the winner is Ms. Yashni Sharma of Faculty of Agriculture, Skuast Jammu. Yashni. Faculty of Agriculture, Skuast Jammu.
Then on the same day, we had the essay writing competition. The theme was Food and Nutritional Security, Removing Hunger. 98 students participated in the essay writing competition. Besides Skuast Jammu, Degree College Bajwani, Degree College Araspura, Government Degree College Bishna, Government Degree College Samba, Government Degree College Vijaypur, Maulana Azad Memorial College Jammu, Government College for Women Bhagwati Nagar, and Government College for Women Parade participated in the event on the 4th of August. Dr. Rastogi will announce the prizes.
Essay writing was coordinated by Dr. K.K. Sood, Dr. Ajay Gupta, and Dr. Vikas Sharma. The third prize in the essay competition goes to Mr. Deepak Kumar of Faculty of Agriculture, Skuast Jammu. Third prize. And the second prize in the essay competition goes to Ms. Binish Guru of Faculty of Agriculture, Skuast Jammu. Ms. Binish. And the winner is Ms. Gursimar Kaur from Government Degree College, Araspura. Judging committee has also agreed upon a consolation prize to the essay of Ms. Mridul Sharma of Faculty of Agriculture, Skuast Jammu.
The next competition was a team event which was a quick competition. The theme was Sustainable Development Goals for Hunger-Free World, which was related to Sustainable Development Goals. Second, besides Skuast Jammu, Women's College Bhagwati Nagar, Government College for Women Parade, Government SPMR College for Commerce participated in the event. Now the prizes.
Quiz competition was coordinated by Dr. Manmohan Sharma and myself. The third prize in the quiz goes to the team of Chanchal, Shima, Yasmin and Modes of Faculty of Agriculture, Skuast Jammu. It was a team event with 4 participants per team. Third prize. There was a tie for the second prize between the teams of Harsh, Dinesh, Deeksha and Udangshri of Faculty of Agriculture, Skuast Jammu and the team of Sugandha, Niharika, Palak and Akriti of Government College of Women Parade. So both the teams is tied at second place. Team of Skuast and team of Government College of Women Parade.
It was a tie, so both of the teams have been awarded second prize.
And the winner is team of Government College of Women Bhagwati Nagar with Ragini, Harbhajan, Nupur and Anjali as team members. So the winners, Government College of Women Bhagwati Nagar. So here comes the quiz winners.
Then the fourth event was Ideathon. The problem statement for Ideathon were post-harvest losses in agriculture and livestock farming, newly emerging diseases in agriculture and livestock farming, stubble burning, affluent management in agriculture and livestock, supply chain management in agriculture and livestock.
Ideathon was
10 students participated in the event and the colleges of Government Degree College Samba, Maulana Azad Memorial College Jammu, Government College for Women Parade, besides Skuast Jammu participated in the event. Now the prizes.
Ideathon was coordinated by myself and Dr. Manmohan Sharma. Third prize in the Ideathon goes to Ms. Anmol Deep Kaur of Government College of Women Parade.
Second prize.
The second prize goes to Ms. Mridul Sharma of Faculty of Agriculture, Skuast Jammu. Second prize in Ideathon. And the winner is Ms. Madhumeet Kaur from Faculty of Veterinary Science and Animal Husbandry, Skuast Jammu.
The main feature of this G20 University Connect, which is a UASP of this event, that's Rangoli making competition, which was held yesterday, in which 15 teams, each is comprising of 3 members participated, a total of 45 students participated. Besides Skuast Jammu, Government Degree College Kujwani, Government Degree College Araspura, Government Degree College Samba, Government Degree College Women Bhagwati Nagar and Government College for Women Parade also participated, and the prizes are.
Rangoli competition was coordinated by Dr. Moni Gupta and Dr. Sachin Gupta. The third prize in Rangoli goes to Shruti Kumari, Shaurya Sharma and Naveena from Skuast Jammu. It was a team event with 3 participants per team. And the second prize goes to Divyanshi, Akanshi and Khushi of Skuast Jammu. winning team is that of Jasleen Chauhan, Meghal Sharma and Megha Agrawal of Skuast Jammu. Thank you, sir. With this, we have concluded the prize distribution ceremony, and now it is time to express our gratitude to our esteemed guests. As a token of our gratitude and respect, I request Honorable Vice Chancellor Dr. Tripathi sir to present a memento to Dr. Tilochan Mahapatra sir. I again request Dr. Tripathi sir to present a memento to Ambassador Sanjay Bhattacharya sir. I once again request Dr. Tripathi sir to present a memento to Dr. R.C. Agarwal sir. And now I request Professor Patience sir to present a memento to Dr. Smita Seroi. I request Honorable Vice Chancellor sir to present a memento to Dr. Smita Seroi. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. And now I request Professor S.K. Gupta sir to present a memento to Honorable Vice Chancellor sir. Thank you so much, sir. And with this we have reached to the end. And now I request Patience sir to present a memento to Registrar sir, Dr. S.K. Gupta sir. And now I invite Registrar Skuast Jammu, Professor S.K. Gupta sir to present the vote of thanks.
Esteemed dignitaries on the dais, all those sitting in this beautiful auditorium of Skuast Jammu, very good afternoon to all. It was indeed a great opportunity for this university to hold this G20 University Connect program. So first of all, I would like to thank the Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India, the Research and Information System for developing countries for providing us this golden opportunity to conduct this G20 University Connect program in the city of Temple. And on my own behalf and on behalf of the university and the Vice Chancellor, I would like to thank all the dignitaries who have attended this program, especially to Dr. Tilochan Mahapatra ji, Chairperson, Protection of Plant Varieties and Farmer Rights Authority, Government of India, for gracing this occasion and presenting a very beautiful lecture and sharing his vast experience on agriculture and the allied sectors. I'm also thankful to Ambassador Shri Sanjay Bhattacharya, former Secretary, Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India, for attending and gracing this occasion. I'm also thankful to Dr. R.C. Agarwal, Deputy Director General, Agriculture Education, ICR, Government of India, for being with us in this event. I'm also thankful to Dr. Smita Sarohiji, Joint Secretary, G20, Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare, Government of India. I'm also thankful to Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. B.N. Tripathi, who has been the force behind this program, and he has shown very keen interest in getting this program successful. I'm also thankful to all my statutory officers, colleagues in the university, faculty members, students, and all those from the non-teaching staff members who have contributed directly or indirectly in organizing and getting this program a great success. I would also thank a special mention to all the principals from all the nearby colleges of Jammu region who have made it possible to bring those students to this different free events which we have organized here, and they are also present in this function also. The mention about this Government Degree College Kunjwani, Government Degree College Arispura, Government Degree College Vishna, Samba, Vijaypur, Bhagwati Nagar, Prayer College, MM College Jammu, and SPMR College of Commerce Jammu also. I'm also thankful to all the students from our university who has attended and shown, despite the examinations going on all around in the Faculty of Veterinary Sciences as well as in Agriculture also. So they have made it possible to attend all the events being organized by the university. I'm also thankful to the team members who have been coordinating with different events of the university, and to mention about that the live telecast of the program, the team from the ITs, they have also made it possible to for this success also. I'm also thankful to Dr. Rohit Saini for conducting the question and answer sessions also. And in the last, I would like to thank one and all who had been associated with this program right from the beginning. And I'm sure that the milestones many milestones have been achieved in this program, particularly during the presidency of India in G20, and wish that India emerge as a global leader. And in the end, some of the names I could have missed out, I am also thankful to all those persons who have contributed in the success of this program. In the end, I would like to thank one and all. Thank you. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.
Thank you, sir. And now please rise for the national anthem.
जन गण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल गंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उज्जल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगल दायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
Thank you, everyone. You all are requested to join us for high tea. Students and non-teaching staff members are requested to please join us for high tea in the lobby of the conference hall. Faculty of Skuast Jammu is participating. The colleges and press members are invited to the first floor of the auditorium outside the function hall for the high tea. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.